Welcome back to Retro Wednesday at the Titanium Hangar, and today I'm going to talk to you about vintage G1 Transformer Minibots. And we're going to talk about variations, we're going to talk about some of these reissues and the re-releases, the Walmart re-releases, the keychain, and all that fun stuff coming up. So I think a lot of people had a lot of these mini bots because of the low price point, because of how frequently they were in the cartoons. Well, some of them were in the cartoon quite a bit, some not so much. But we're going to talk about these, and we're going to start with Powerglide. So the first one I want to talk about is Powerglide. Now, this is one of the first Autobots to actually fly, which is a big deal that he could fly. And I thought this was a really cool figure back in the day, simply because he had some articulation in his arms. You could do something with his arms, and also with that articulation, you could always do some weird stuff with the flight mode. But looking at the alt mode, it looks really good. It actually looks like a Rattler, and they did make a third-party version that was blue, like a G.I. Joe Rattler or Cobra Rattler. So that's really cool there, and the bot itself has little to no actual articulation, but it is a really cool mini bot, considering these mini bots were only like $4 or $3 or $4 depending on where you bought them. They were a lot of fun. So next up I want to talk about Willie, and he was the fast-talking child. Yes, if you thought he was real annoying, well, that's because he was a kid and they were trying to make him into an annoying kid. Here he is as a robot. His hands really do not look like hands at all, but he doesn't look like the show at all. They really did make him look completely different on the show. The alt mode looks pretty good, which they did match the alt modes very well back in the day. And I do want to point out this little face cover, or the canopy, is almost always missing on a vintage one. So if you get in a vintage one, see that you get that canopy. I still don't have one yet. So next up we have Huffer and the repaint to pipes. Now here's the thing, Huffer was kind of a pessimist, and I thought it was strange because they always showed, or maybe it's just once, but it seemed like a lot to me, that Huffer could haul Optimus Prime's trailer, but that never seemed to make sense to me back in the day. I just don't see it happening ever. Yeah, I don't see that happening ever. Although I liked the character and I think that the toy looks okay, I think it was too simple for its own good. There should have been something. Those just straight arms, not a fun toy to play with back in the day, and definitely not today. The alt mode, though, it does look like a good little truck, but it looks like it's too small. Like it doesn't really fit. So they did recolor it to pipes, and one of the difference about pipes and Huffer is the fact that, well, it's called pipes because he doesn't have hands on the end there, where you would see the hands on Huffer. You just see pipes on pipes. But the actual artwork shows he does have hands, but the pipes are more like sticking out of his arms like a seeker. But Pipes was a brave Autobot, and he liked to collect human artifacts. Let's talk about Cliffjumper real quick. Now this guy was always ready for battle, and I can't believe I didn't know this back in the day, but when I found out he was voiced by Casey Kasem, I was like, oh yeah, that makes sense. That voice sounds so familiar. But anyway, to me, I always just thought it was a cheap ploy of repainting Bumblebee and adding a spoiler. But there was a lot more to it than that. I mean, when you bring in a Bumblebee and you can see the difference, like there was more than that. There was the front end was different and the rear end was different. So it was a lot more. Now, these are penny racers. They're based off of little toys where you put a penny in the back and that would kind of have them do a wheelie when you pull them back and let them go. Now, the actual figure has very little to no articulation, but it still gets the job done. I was always kind of didn't like this cheap version of a head. I always wish there was a better way to do the head. As a kid, I was like, oh, this sucks. But I did still think it was cool, and of course, the character, not as much as Bumblebee in the show, but definitely was in the show quite a bit, and the car does look good. And of course, I prefer Masterpiece versions that look like this car. Now here are some variations of this figure. I actually thought I had a Bumblejumper, and I don't. But this is just a yellow repaint of Cliffjumper, and I actually have two. For the longest time I thought, oh yeah, I got a Bumblejumper in there somewhere. No, just two yellow repaints of Cliffjumper, which I don't know why they did that. But here's the thing. So the Bumblejumper has a different front end. It's a lot different than these, but it's similar in a way. It does not have this spoiler in the back, and so yeah, you can see the picture there. Now, I do have a G2 repaint where it has a shiny red, a shiny metallic, and I think it's pretty cool. In fact, it seems like those are less to come by, but what is it? Is this the Bumblejumper version? I don't know, because it's not Bumblebee. So anyway, yeah, that's kind of cool. I like how they do these repaints too. Next up we have Bumblebee, who's touted to be the smallest Transformer of all the Transformers, and of course had to make up for that by just being awesome, I guess. But one of the favorite Transformers out there as Bumblebee, and really the difference between Cliffjumper is the fact that of course it is a Volkswagen Bug, and yeah, my vintage one needs some wheels on it, but there's some variations to this. So I do have a gold version, so like a G2 gold Bug. Now that's not the actual gold Bug, it's just a gold reflective repaint. And so when you could see that, there's also, well, this is a keychain version. That's actually Cliffjumper. They made a keychain version, and I have the keychain version right here. So these were Heroes of Cybertron in the keychain version. I didn't like these when they came out because I knew like I didn't like the keychain thing. I was like, well, that's I guess that's one way that you could get it, but maybe they'll come out with one day, a reissue. And of course, Walmart did come out with a reissue of this on the card back. I really do like that they did this. I know collectors who spent a crazy amount of money on these are like, oh, well, you know, now mine's not as special, but still, I mean, everyone knows the difference between them and the dates on the back and all that. But I think it's pretty cool that we get this and we can have a piece of history in our collection for, I think it was like $8 when these came out. So Cosmos is an intelligent Autobot, and one of the only Autobots that can actually go into space by themselves. This guy here is pretty cool, but not much you can do with him. I had him as a kid, and I actually liked him, but the character itself I didn't seem to care for. But, you know, going back to the days of simple transformations, it is kind of fun. I don't have a second one of this one. I don't know why. I keep thinking I do, and then when I look for a second, I don't find it, so maybe I just never put it away and it's floating around here somewhere. But there he is in spaceship mode. I think it's pretty cool to have a spaceship. There's not very many spaceships in the Transformers toy line. We're going to get into Warpath and talking about him. So this guy here always talked like he was on Batman from back in the 60s. And kapow, kazam, wowie. But this is a reissue of the G1 version, and I think it's kind of cool. I like to have it. I'm glad that they did it. Nice to have a minty fresh one and not my beat up old one over here. Looking at the back, there is the back. Funny how you get the couple of few steps. I mean, wow, what are they now? Like 60 steps? I saw an actual Hasbro one that has like 61 steps or something like that. It's kind of crazy. But anyway, there we go. And let's have a look at, the thing is, like the front piece doesn't push in anymore. It just is what it is. The head does collapse. That's something that the Fans Toys one does. Definitely a cool looking figure. Alt mode is a Sheridan tank, and see, they really did do a good job with the alt modes back in G1 from back in the day, and I just love it. I also love the rub signs, especially if they still work. Seaspray is pretty much the Autobots Navy. And I always was intrigued by how it transformed. Even though it has little to no articulation, I thought it was fun how it transformed and how it operated and how it worked. And it was a pretty cool little figure. And even to this day, they still utilize a lot of aspects of this transformation to transform him in the Masterpiece line. And he still looks pretty cool. Looking at this alt mode, he does have actual spinning propellers, which is kind of fun. It has wheels on the bottom so it can roll. I mean, I don't think it floats. I'm pretty sure it doesn't float. But sad thing is, a lot of these, the white starts to yellow on them real bad, and so it starts to make them look kind of sad. Next up, we're going to talk about this tough guy Braun, and one thing I want to say about this dude is, the way his hands come out, it's just a weird kind of transformation. I always just had it like this forever, to where like the green things were part of his arms, and I'm looking around and I guess the true transformation is to put those back and have just the arms out. But you know, in my mind I was thinking, you know, G1 big bricks, let those big brick arms make them more tough. But yeah, it still looks pretty cool. His gun, does come with a gun, and I can show you that when we get to Outback. That's supposed to plug into the top of this car right here in his alt mode. But those arms there are usually missing. This guy's missing one of the arms. That's something you want to look for if you're buying a G1 version of this guy. And even if you're buying a reissue that's been opened, unless it's sealed. But you know, one of the things about these reissues is I always plan to use them for parts. If I wanted to restore one, like rubber tires that match it exactly, or maybe even a gun for this. So I know some people disagree with that, but you know how I feel about KOs, right? Well, if you don't know how I feel about KOs, well, here I stand with KOs. Well, they're not technically KOs, they're just reissues from the same company. But anyway, this here is good old Outback, and Outback is an insubordinate Autobot, according to his history there. But it's just basically a recolor of Braun, and it looks pretty cool. And I like the fact that when Walmart reissued these, they came out with the recolors, which are actually harder to get your hands on than the originals. They made the originals in larger quantities, so these recolored ones are fewer and far between. Well, Wincharger here, he's supposed to be one of the fastest Autobots, and of course, well, not of course, he can lift really heavy weight with electromagnetic power. So yeah, that dude can do a lot, packs a punch. He's also a little sports car, looks great, love the T-tops on it. I love the alt mode, it's always fun. I had a lot of fun with this guy back in the day, and the bot mode left a lot to be desired, but it was a fun, quick transformation. In fact, I almost feel like this is just a blown up version of a Micromaster. But that can't be true because it was made way before these Micromasters were made. But it does look a lot like one of these Micromasters. You had to know they were gonna do it. They were gonna repaint Wincharger into Tailgate. Now Tailgate was actually in the show, but probably some of the least amount of time in the show, to where many people probably don't even understand the existence of it because they're not used to seeing him in the show. But anyway, it's still a cool car, a cool transformer, and he got his own face, a little bit different face to him, and a lot of changes to it. So it wasn't just a repaint, it was a repaint and some alteration. Next up, we have Beachcomber. His anti-violent tendencies kind of reminds me of Cerebros, and Cerebros did not believe in war or fighting. And although the difference between these two is Beachcomber did fight, and he just didn't like it, as Cerebros kind of refused to. But anyway, this is a cool looking figure. I mean, anyhow you slice it, the figure looks cool. It looks like he's wearing some shades, and I like the color breakup. This particular version, I like the color of blue. The shade of blue on the one that's in alt mode, I don't like it as much. I don't know why they're different shades of blue, probably just time and aging, and this one was kept inside, that one was left in a sandbox or something, who knows. But really a cool figure, and I get excited about all the different iterations of third party that's coming out to celebrate this. And it's an awesome dune buggy. Just really, you could tell it's a dune buggy. They did a good job with this back in the day as just a little low price point toy. To be honest with you, none of these G2 recolors, I didn't hunt them down. They just showed up in lots I bought, and I have them, and they just happen to have this kind of lack of tires and stuff with them. But I love nowadays that I have them, and the repaint, look at that bright, shiny repaint of the green. That's just awesome. So I'm seeing a lot of love for the G2 these days. Gears is a a grumpy guy, but he always had a smile. Like he was real grumpy, and then later on he chuckled about something. So it was kind of a funny kind of back and forth that he had in the show. This is one figure that I had as a kid that I probably played with way too much, but he was pretty cool. Like his truck mode looked like a truck, but full of something in the bed. Like the bed was either it's a space camper, which I never could understand, or he's hauling around some Fort Carrium stuff. I don't know, but cool looking figure. And to this day, like we only have one really good masterpiece version of him, and very few modern adaptations of him. I'm surprised. The one that they did. The Hasbro did not so long ago, the Legends, was pretty good in the Generations line, but we haven't seen one, so that's like 5-6 years since we've seen an update to this figure, but maybe we'll see it at Earthrise. And Swerve is obviously just a repaint of Gears, and I don't ever remember seeing him in the show, so there it is. I just don't remember watching him in the show at all, so I only have the one. I don't have two. I went out of my way to get them too. Now this is one of the few I went out of my way to get that wasn't, part of the ARC lineup and the original G1 lineup. And the thing is I just thought it was pretty cool. And when I found out it existed, I was like, hey, I want one. And then Walmart puts them out, and so that is pretty cool. I wonder what the next one's going to be from Walmart, or if they're done with that line. It's kind of been bothering me which one of these came out first, and this one was first and that one was second. So yeah, I remember it right. They did come out with the alternate repaints first and then the actual one second, which is cool. I hope you enjoyed this look back at G1 Transformer Minibots. I hope to see some more of these remade by Hasbro, and we know we're seeing more of them get remade in the Masterpiece line. Like, subscribe. Titanium Hanger out.